I also want to take this moment before we get to the Mariners' top prospects to tell you about our friends at Ethos Life Insurance. There could be so many different happenings in your life that make you say, I want to make sure that my family is protected. It could be a health scare, it could just be, a certain event that you see on the news, but you want to make sure that your family is protected. And for that, I would recommend going to our friends at Ethos. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not in months. There's no complicated process. It is 100% online. You can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. You can get same day coverage without ever leaving your house. And you can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies as low as $2 a day, billed monthly. Ethos is a trustworthy company that disrupts the traditional life insurance industry. 3 million families have completed their applications and trusted Ethos to help find the right coverage. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/justbaseball. That's ethos, ethos.com/justbaseball. Application times may vary and rates may vary.
So we jump into the Mariners update here, and we're just going to kind of bounce around and talk about some of the big movers, right? And just kind of some of the topics within it. I think focusing on just some of the newcomers as well is an interesting angle because there are a lot of them, and it's just still a really good system overall. Even as they're set to graduate, some guys did graduate, some guys. There's just always going to be talent in this Mariners farm, and I think a big part of that is because of their drafting. And I do think that sometimes when people are we're analyzing draft classes, maybe we preemptively give credit, like, oh yeah, we start to talk ourselves into that third round pick by the Mariners because it's like, oh, they're usually smart. Like, let me look at the positives with this pick a little bit more than maybe the scrutiny that we'd look at if it's a Nationals third round pick. And I think that's something that I notice on social media a little bit, and in general, maybe sometimes I'll try to like make sure I'm not doing. That said, when I looked at this Mariners draft class, and the more that I was able to dig in when we did the update here, I really liked all of their picks out. Of course, the first round was a layup, and they put the layup in the hoop. But I liked the other selections as well, and that's kind of where I want to start. But also the IFA side, right? Like where at number 13, Yorger Batista. I know he's a big Bowman chase, but Batista is like a popular IFA guy because he got $2.1 million in the 2025 class. It wasn't the best year for him, and I think if he had a better year, he probably would have been higher up here because we're talking about potential for a well above average power for his age, plus run times in the outfield. But because of the swing and miss that was in his game, I had to kind of limit him outside of the top 10. I think it's also because it's just a good farm system. But Bautista was somebody that I'm excited about. Could be a breakout candidate going into next year, but didn't quite put it all together in that pro debut, which is why I kind of went with the two draft guys and Nick Becker at 11, their second round pick, and Korbyn Dickerson at 12, their fifth round pick in 2025. Two guys that I'm really excited about. I would kick it over to you, but I know that you're probably not going to have much to discuss about Yorger Bautista other than the fact that you're probably, if you look at the numbers right now, it's like, we've seen guys that are, budding prospects torch the DSL a little bit more. And the 30% chase rate's the big concern for me in the DSL when you're seeing 55, 60% fastballs.
I'm trying to find a fun fact about Yorger Bautista without going to ChatGPT. He's nicknamed La Bestia, which is the beast. So that's a fun little tidbit on Yorger Bautista.
At least the beast is from planet Earth. At least we're not giving him a out of this world nickname here. I'm glad
Yeah.
we're done with that because uh,
People forget when Jason Dominguez officially acknowledged that for the first time. Do you remember where he acknowledged that?
the Martian.
I, yeah, I think he was waiting at his gate in the Philly airport. He was like on a connecting flight or something, and somebody said, like, "Are you Dominguez?" And he said, "I am the Martian. I am out of this world," or something like that. Do you remember that?
I do.
That was a story. He was like flying to his debut, and they said, "Do you play?" And he goes, I am the Martian. I am
I'm
out of
the Mar-
this world."
but I got to take commercial airline.
It's amazing.
And then I mean I think Celesten's what isn't he El Mutante? So we'll talk
El
about
Mutante. Yeah, there's got to be like three El Mutantes.
yeah. There's there's a lot.
Well, and then isn't Jose Barrios La Máquina? The machine?
Well, that makes sense. He until recently, he well, literally was a machine. He never hit the IL,
Yeah,
right?
but that's another like otherworldly type
Yeah,
thing.
that is true. That is true. Um, Number 12 was a fascinating one for me because with Korbyn Dickerson, I I was looking at what his tools can kind of be and like what he brings to the table, and I was kind of surprised that he was a fifth round pick. But I think you also just have some swing and miss concern. I think that was a big part of it, and I think we saw, and yeah, I think that when there's a lot of underlying whiff, or at least just some when the competition isn't great, you just don't never totally know how that's going to translate. Outfielder who transferred from Louisville to Indiana, and then at Indiana, he turned his tools into just major production. I think he battled some missed time, if I'm not mistaken, and that probably contributed to it. And it was a little bit like delayed, and we didn't see a ton in the early parts of his collegiate career, but then just breaking out the way that he did. I think with Dickerson, just moving into the top 15 and being at 12, it's just about the upside and the power speed combination that may just be too much to ignore here, and is worth trying to tolerate the swing and miss that might be there. He had an
Yeah.
OPS north of 1,000, 19 homers in 54 games. But he hit, and I understand what's with metal, but he reached 117 miles per hour in the EV department and an EV 90 of 108 miles per hour. You turn that in with plus run times. It gives him a chance in center field. If he can't stick there, okay, he goes in a corner and he's still giving you plus speed and above average power plus raw power. That's something that's worth taking a shot on, even if the hit tool is a present 30 and the plate discipline is fringy. If those two things can improve, I think Dickerson's a guy that can also be kind of someone you circle as a potential breakout candidate for next year.
I also, you know what you're talking about swing wise. I don't really know what I'm talking about swing wise, but watching some of the video on Korbyn Dickerson at Indiana, at least, like watching some clips, it seems like he's a very athletic mover. Like it just almost seemed, if I were to try and loosely define the term twitchy in the
Yeah,
box, like that
yeah,
kind of seems like Korbyn Dickerson.
100%. And you have to be twitchy when you're 6 foot 195 and you're producing 117s. Like you're gonna have something going for you in terms of just like explosion and twitchiness, and when it's kind of that frame defying pop, it's
Yep.
exactly the word. I think I think the word twitchy gets thrown out a little bit too much. This is a twitchy athlete between the speed and the EVs and bat speed that he can turn in, and I do like the operation. I think there's some things he can always clean up. Any hitter can coming out of the draft, but I think overall it's not bad, and to build on that. It's a guy that I think you should be excited about as your fifth round pick.
Yep.
And then that kind of sends me into the guy right ahead of him in number 11, Nick Becker. This is a really well rounded player with projection. They took him in the second round. And, I know some teams were looking at him as a borderline first round kind of guy. And with Becker, 6'3, 180 pounds out of high school, where looks like he could potentially stick it short. If he doesn't, then okay, great. You move him over to third, and he's going to be a good defender there because you know that he's got the footwork there. But what I like is, I mean, I see the future for at least an average hit tool, average plate discipline, average power, a plus runner, and either sticks it short or moves over and is an above average third baseman. It's just a great sum of his parts type of player. But the thing with these types of guys is he's 6'3", 180, and all of those average, especially like the average power, like what if he's 6'3", 195 when he shows up this year? Like Colt Emerson, showed up and added some strength. And then all of a sudden, you've got this kind of above average power that maybe he can get into. And now you're really excited about the archetype. But I just love that when there's players like this, where you have the frame and then you have what seems to be easy to talk yourself into average or above average tools across the board. There's no like easier breakout candidate to pick for me because you're not betting on a guy curbing a huge weakness or a weakness. You're betting on a guy improving. It's not even a strength, but just improving one of his already solid foundation areas a little bit more as he turns 19 plus and grows into his big frame. He's
Yep.
got a really strong arm, and I think the athleticism to go with it, it just really helps his case across the board. So I think he could stick it short personally. And if he does that, I mean, that's even less pressure on the bat. It's a really well-rounded player here with Becker that I think, again, this is going to be another one where it's like, oh, the Mariners did it again in the second round. that's where I do think Becker could be.
So I've lauded their ability to draft over the last couple of years on this show. Scott Hunter is their scouting director, and we talk a lot about their first round picks. All the time we talk about their first round picks, but you start to get into the dive of the still early rounds, but not the first round. You look at their first selection each draft, chances are they're nailing it every single time. Who was first in the Emerson Farmelo Pete? Was it Emerson? I think it
Emerson.
was I think it was Colt
Yeah,
Emerson.
yeah, it was Emerson first.
It was Emerson first. Like if you look at their first pick in every draft, they almost always just absolutely kill it, knock it out of the park. But the gems are well documented. Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, looking like the second and third and fourth round too. I think Raleigh was a fourth round pick. Scott Hunter's been there for a while.
Yeah.
They eat in the first like 6 or 7 rounds. I understand that AJ Preller is a very good amateur scout. He's really good at drafting, but like it is always top of the draft. They crush it.
I agree. And it's just to be able to get a player like this where it's if it doesn't all come together, it's still a really high floor. Like he's 18 years old too, so young for the class. Um, and you can probably talk yourself into like a bench role or infield utility if it doesn't all come together. Like that's a player I would love to be able to add in the second round, but you can dream on, I think, above average everyday shortstop. And then I think with the tools across the board, the floor is still relatively high for, in terms of 18-year-old shortstops that you're going to be drafting. And usually you're not able to find guys like that in the second round. So I'm very excited about, what he's going to do this year. And probably one of the guys I've got circled, for just looking forward to following and watching as much of as I can in this farm system.
Yeah.
Do you think I was too harsh on Felnin Celesten at 10?
I don't think so.
But he's El Mutante.
Yeah, but El Mutante needs to play more baseball.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the big part. It was the combination of the injuries and the lack of production. It was nice to see him turn in, I think, over 100 games this year. But just the bat speed was so. It looked like he was swinging underwater. And I don't know if it was because of injuries, but it was definitely subdued this year. Like the impact was significantly subdued. And he turned in a 719 OPS. Now, you could also say he lost a lot of reps over the last couple of years because of the injury, and I think that's fair. But also, it's like we need him to stay healthy. So he stays healthy this year. He gets a lot of reps back, but he battled, and it was a challenge for him. The other issue is that his defense was horrendous, and that was the part that really weighed him down for me. Because I think you can be patient on the bat. I still think he's got the skill set, and I think this offseason, I'm sure. I mean, he's actually off to a great start in the Winter League. In the Dominican Winter League, he's already hit a couple home runs. I think he has a hit in all three contests that he's been in so far. He had 4 RBIs in one of his games. So like that's really encouraging. And I just love the idea of a young switch hitter with all the talent in the world being surrounded by some of these vets that can, just shed some info and I think some valuable conversations with him just on how to go about things. Because even in some of these swings I've seen from the Winter League, he definitely seems like he's keeping the weight back a little bit better, which is something that's been a big part of his challenges, I think, at points where he can just really get heavy on that front side, drift forward. So that is the encouraging part. And I think it's just great that he's out there getting more reps and already showing well out there. But when the defense was where it was at this year, and I mean, I don't know what the error total was, but I saw a lot of just rough footwork and kind of ground balls eating him up. And I know that there were a lot of errors when I checked in at some point in the midpoint of the season. And then on top of that, just a lot of secondary chase. There was a lot of yellow to reddish flags. He was 19 for the entirety of the season.
Yeah.
He could absolutely make a huge leap this year. And he showed a lot of really good things the year before. I'm not counting him out at all. And I think the other thing that's interesting is, he was solid from both sides of the plate. 270 hitter from both sides of the plate. OPS was, north of 700 from both sides of the plate. It was a combined 719. So those are all, solid things. He's got a good foundation from both sides. I think this Mariner system, you are guaranteed that one of these bats is going to make a leap. I really do believe that. Like one of these guys is going to break out next year, that we just mentioned. And Celestin is as good of a candidate as any as well. But when we're talking about a $4.7 million IFA guy and a guy that when he was on the field in 2024 was really turning it. I mean, what was it? 1,000 OPS when he was on the field. I understand it was
I believe so.
complex and whatever, but it was just a really disappointing season. I don't know if I reacted dropping him to 10. I think it's more of a testament to the system. Still 45 plus future value. And like the next guy we're going to talk about, I really do like. And I think that was a big part of it as well. But the defense is what really, I think, weighed him down for me.
Got you. Yeah, it was a 999 OPS. He had 352 at the complex in 2024. But this year, 352 batting average dropped to 273, and the slug went from 568 to 375. Felnin Celesten has been the second most productive hitter through 4 games on the Toros del Este. Their best hitter so far has been Mickey Gasper. So shout out Mickey Gasper and another teammate of Celestin in Toros, Aaron Sanchez. 33-year-old Aaron Sanchez is in on the pitching staff for the Toros.
Oh, I love that league, man.
It's so
And
much fun.
for reference on the errors, he played 89 games at shortstop this season, 29 errors. It's a
Eek.
916 fielding percentage.
Yeah,
So
can't get away with that.
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to do it that way. So just things that a whole need to improve a little bit.
Yeah.
The next guy, it's I actually sent some text around because there's another 2025 draft pick. Took him in the comp A round. Luke Stevenson. I asked some people, why did Luke Stevenson fall to 35? A catcher with good defense that has a maybe plus plate discipline and above average power. I think there were some things possibly just beyond like performance on the field, but also I know some teams were just a little bit skeptical of the hit tool. Like there was some swing and miss there that I think some were concerned about. I still think he was incredibly undervalued by the industry here. I don't really understand. Even even if there are some concerns about, whether he can make enough contact or, whether he can stay healthy, whatever it may be, like look at the results and look at the skill set and how it can translate even if he does swing and miss a ton. I'm giving you an above average defender with that flashes plus power. It's probably going to be above average power to the pull side. Elevates consistently. And if you combine his pro debut and his draft season, he walked 20% of the time. I feel really good about that type of player. By the way, also like he hit lefties to a 991 OPS. So even if there is a ton of strikeouts, like you don't have to platoon him. Like he's gonna just battle similarly against lefties and righties. Hit sliders really, really well. I'm surprised that in a draft that was light in terms of catchers, Stevenson didn't crack the top 30 when you have plus plate discipline to hedge swing and miss. You have above average power to hedge swing and miss, and you have above average defense at a premium position to hedge offensive concerns. And a left-handed bat.
Yeah. There's few holes to poke in there, I guess.
Like what? Other than the swing and miss?
Yeah, I mean,
That
it seems like a first round talent.
and I guess comp A like technically is, but I mean this guy. Another one where I think the way he performs this year, I think a lot of people are going to say like, "Oh man, why didn't he go earlier?" His low. I understand he's a collegiate bat, but his low A debut, like 22 games, he had an 860 OPS after a long season, catching at North Carolina. I,
Yeah.
he walked more than he struck out in his pro debut. I understand it's low A, but he walked more than he struck out. And 460 OBP. This is
Yeah.
a really solid player that it does feel a little bit like, and I don't think he's going to fully get there. Like, don't get me wrong, but it does feel a little bit like the Dalton Rushing archetype
Sure.
here.
Sure. Where
And
he just kind of falls into a team's lap. Like Rushing fell into the Dodgers' lap, and they're sitting here saying, that's not like we can't take him.
and
So I understand what Seattle's doing here.
and with Rushing, it was swing and miss, but there was power. I think with rushing, there was more question about the defense because he hadn't caught much. And that's even more crazy part is like you have a guy that looks like a good catcher. So I think rushing, you had more power and, I think probably less swing and miss, but it was still a little bit of a deficiency. But with Stevenson, you have a 16% chase rate between draft year and pro, and then you have this ability to pull the ball in the air at a high clip. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Number 8 was Jurrangelo Cijntje, pretty much unchanged. I think it was kind of a status quo year for him, which is a good thing, right? We really liked him out of the draft. The run prevention numbers weren't fantastic, but you saw all the stuff. You think things look really good. I think he should stop throwing lefty, and I think once he does that, it'll help him. And just a status quo, really good prospect, good year, just outside of the top 100, but just in the same spot, pretty much.
Makes sense.
Arroyo, we've talked about him as he elevated just because he kept hitting, but of course, right when we put him in the top 100, he stopped hitting. But he's just, it's kind of undeniable what Arroyo's done. And still, we talked about his leap in the top 100, but it's mostly just doing it at the upper levels. The big thing for me with Arroyo at second base, Michael Arroyo, is the glove far better at second base than it was before. Before it looked like he could be fringy there. Now he looks really good there. And then the plate discipline and power just combination is just fantastic. Ford, status quo from the last time we checked in, but he made a leap this year, obviously. We talked about that in the top 100, like the defense coming along, the ability to pull the ball in the air, all of those things. And I think being able to maximize that approach and that patience more this year was encouraging because like he's always been able to pull the ball in the air, but like I think there was a point where it's like, hey, don't sell out for that. You're speedy. Like you leverage that and your advantage counts, but like battle a little bit more and like just a line drive up the middle or like, sometimes the hard hit ground ball is going to play for a guy like you. And I think he's balanced that now where he can battle a little bit in deeper counts. And then when he's in advantage counts, you'll see that air pull swing a little bit more. And then the glove got better. And so that's why he was a climber. Status quo. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick. Can I tell you what I'm worried about with Harry Ford? In terms of opportunity, like the opportunity comp for me is Lawler. Like I sit here and I say like there's a lot of the Lawler situation in Seattle with the Ford situation where Lawler was sitting behind somebody that was amazing in Perdomo. And it's like, I would love to get this top prospect in there and there's nothing left for him to do in the minor leagues, but I can't because Perdomo's better. Raleigh could win an MVP this year. I'm just wondering, like, if Ford is more than a part-time player for the Seattle Mariners, and that would hinder his major league development, and that would probably hinder his major league production in terms of what the baseball reference page looks like.
I think the Lawler comp's excellent because it's just, Lawler's going to get that run now, but, at what cost? I think there's been a lot. And he's been hurt. He's been hurt and things like that, but he could have had so many more reps, and he'd go down to AAA and do what he does, so he wasn't really able to develop. And then I think it adds to the pressure when you get up to the big leagues. It's like, okay, somebody's hurt. I got to show something now. But by the time he gets back, because if I don't show it now, then they're just going to send me right back down anyways. And then that pressure compounds and you don't perform very well. And it was even affecting Lawler on the defensive side of things. And once I see a guy that's a good defender start struggling like a Volpe, I think now the injury was affecting him too. But you start to feel like that pressure is mounting. And I felt like that was what was happening with Lawler. Ford, it's a similar spot, and that's why I think you got to consider shopping him around, and because you're gonna affect his value. It's funny, he has 2 hits in his major league career. One's in the regular season, the other one's in the playoffs when he pinch hit when they were down 9, and he hit a ball 107.5 miles per hour, line shot straight to center off of Fluharty against the Blue Jays. I want to see him play more. He's still just 22 years old, but yeah, I think there's like an aspect with him where like he could go stale. Maybe they try to if they really love him and they just say, we don't want to trade him just to trade him, and there's nothing out there, I think you put an outfield glove back on him again and have him be the complimentary catcher that can go play some outfield for you, and you just grind that all off season.
Corner. I'm done with the Canzone thing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. It was a fun little stretch. You got some value out of him, but like I think if you give Harry Ford a full offseason, because now the catcher position, like I understand not doing it for him 2 years ago because you wanted to develop him as a catcher because there's just so much value to him being at least an average big league catcher. He is that now. So now that he is an average big league catcher, He still gets his reps there. I think you're going to want to get Cal out of the crouch a little bit more next year. Like you don't want to run that guy into the ground now because he's so freaking valuable that maybe you give him 10, 15 extra games off behind the dish. That can be Ford's opportunity there. And then I think if you really don't want to move him, you put an outfield glove on and say, let's grind this all off season, all spring training. And that's something that I think they need to figure out because as is right now, they're just going to end up depreciating an asset and hurting a player's development. And that nobody wins there.
Yeah.
Jonny Farmelo for status quo. Loved our conversation with him. Check that out from previous episodes. But even though he was hurt when he was on the field, again, status quo. Ryan Sloan, he elevated himself, but we've talked about that in the top 100. He's as exciting of an arm as you're going to get in the minor leagues because how often do we get a 6'4" righty from the prep ranks? By the way, another second round cleanup job here by the Mariners. How often do you get that and you go, I love the floor? Like, how often are you feeling good about the floor of a prep right-hander?
Never. Literally never. I'm trying to think of another guy. The last guy that I remember being a high floor prep righty was Brady Aiken, and that worked really well.
Yeah.
But like Ryan Sloan actually has the feel of a high floor prep righty.
And again, kind of similar to the Becker conversation, how do you get a high floor prep? I know they gave him first round money, but how do you get a high floor prep righty in the second round?
How does nobody meet the right number for him in the first round? Like, if it was a matter of meeting a number, like, go ahead and meet that.
Yeah. I don't understand. And I know you've probably talked to some people in the Chicagoland area that they're like, Sloan was like this in high school, man. Like, he was always a different mover on the mound, right? Like, it's fascinating. 72% strike rate on the four-seamer that averaged 95.5 miles per hour this year. And then you had a sweeper that was a plus pitch all year. And then you had a splitter that was a plus pitch when he threw it. And I just want to see him up the usage. And then he mixed in this bridge cutter that I love. So you've got a 4-pitch mix. You've got a 4.5% walk rate from Sloan. And you combine all those things and you got a really good pitcher here. And a guy that I think has the upside to be a frontline arm and the fallback of just a really, really, really solid, I think number 4 starter. I think that there's not really, I hate putting that high of a floor on a guy, but it's really hard to envision anything worse than Sloan being a really high end back end option who can eat innings with the way that he's built.
It's awesome.
Kade Anderson, it was a little bit of a Sloan versus Anderson conversation. I'm curious, where are you at there? Because Sloan did do it professionally, but also there was some outings where he battled a little bit in low A, and I think the fastball characteristics could get a little bit better. And we saw Kade Anderson just dominate on the big stage there. Like, how close do you think these guys are in terms of? And they're so different. We're talking about prep righty, college lefty, but they are both pitchers, so naturally, you do have to compare them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more room for growth for Ryan Sloan. Frankly, I think Ryan Sloan can be a better pitcher than Kade Anderson. I do. I think that Jamie Arnold could be a better pitcher than Kade Anderson. It's just like we're talking about two high floors. And the high floor, it's funny because you talk about excitement and electricity on the mound. If you're going by stuff, you always take the younger guy because the younger guy has stuff. And he's also got 2 more years to work with. Ryan Sloan is 3 years younger than Kade Anderson at this point?
Kade is
2 years because he was drafted in 24. 2 years younger than Kade Anderson. So if it was a stuff conversation, you'd be taking Sloan because he has 2 years to match the stuff of Kade Anderson. But for me, you look at the floor, I'm taking the guy that was the best pitcher in college baseball this year. He K'd 180 guys in college baseball, and it was in the SEC. So I'm going to take the guy that his next start could be in the big leagues and he wouldn't be overmatched. Sloan's next start could also be in the big leagues, but he would probably be overmatched.
He'd get shelled, unfortunately.
He'd get shelled, but Anderson won't.
Yeah, and that was the big thing for me. I think you could drop Kade Anderson in the show and maybe he would battle. Maybe it wouldn't be great, but there's a realistic scenario where he turns in a decent start there. And I think that just shows you how advanced he is between the fastball characteristics. And then the thing that stands out the most to me with Anderson is the combination of the slider, changeup, and curve, all good pitches. he threw for a strike at 69% of the time. Like,
Nice.
that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. The biggest factor for me that I'm interested to see with Cade is the fastball characteristics were really good in college. A lot of guys are, everybody's affected disproportionately. Like, it's different for everybody in terms of how much vert you may lose or whatever it may be. If he loses some vert, maybe a little bit more than some of the peers, just based on the way he throws the ball, that would affect him, I think, a little bit more too, because I think the carry on that fastball at 93 really sets everything else up. He'd obviously still be fine, but I think that would affect the ceiling a little bit because he had a 30% in zone whiff rate on that fastball. So I think that's the big wrinkle. But we won't really know until we get to fully see that, and just very much looking forward to that, and just seeing what all this stuff looks like. He's 100% going to be a fast mover there. Number one, to wrap up here, Colt Emerson. I wouldn't say it's status quo, because for him, like, he's elevated into one of the best prospects in baseball for us, and you'll see in our top 100 update in the coming week or so here, like, he's going to be up there, and he was up there on the last one. The defense, we've talked about on the show a good bit, has progressed to well above average, and he looks like he's 100% going to stick at that position and be good there. The impact continued to improve there, where we saw the EV90 at 105, but then we really started to see him slug a lot more. And then I watched every AAA at bat, and it wasn't a ton of them. Obviously, there was only about, like, what, 40, but I was just floored at how comfortable the ABs were, whether it was in the playoffs, against Las Vegas, or in just a tough series against Oklahoma City's pitching staff.
Yeah.
Just such comfortable ABs, drawing walks, rarely striking out, hitting the ball hard, going the other way. Emerson just looks like he is really, like, solidified the entirety of his game. The bat to ball has always been there, right? And now that's still very much there, 80% contact rate on the year. But now you're seeing the approach get a little bit better, and that was one area that was a little bit deficient at points. And I think that's still probably the area to focus on the most. But you've seen the defense get to where it is, and then the biggest thing for me was the ground ball rate. Right? You look at the first, 50 games from Colt Emerson, and we talked about it. There was an adjustment mechanically where he went to the toe tap, and I think that really did help him stay back. And it's night and day. First 50 games of the season, he had a 59% ground ball rate. The subsequent 82 games, he had a 41% ground ball rate. I mean, when you are producing above average exit velocities, that can be the difference between below average power and above average power. And I think we saw above average power down the stretch from Colt Emerson with a tangible mechanical adjustment. I put out a piece on that. I'll link that in the episode description, just kind of breaking down the mechanical changes that he made that allowed for that. But anytime you got a physical, tangible mechanical adjustment, huge shift in data and huge shift in surface level numbers, I'm going to probably buy into that trend.
Yeah. It's also the thing that I'm looking at right now. When it comes to normalizing, he's almost doing the same thing at every level. There are some where, he just dominated, like in rookie ball, he just dominated out of the draft, which is okay. And then you go to low A, I think it was what, a 140 career WRC plus in low A. And then he goes to high A and it's like a career 119. And then he goes to double A for a minute this year. In 34 games, it was a 133. Like everywhere, he is comfortably above average. And it may take some time at the outset. Like his first stretch in high A was not awesome, but then he came back and was awesome in high A. So he is acclimated to every single level. And when it all normalizes, he's well above average at every single level.
Yeah. And I think that's a testament to his ability to adjust. And he's always seemed to do that. And then I think doing it in double A, he had to make his most significant adjustment, and he did. And it just, I think you're always evolving as a hitter, right? You're always evolving as a player in general. And I think seeing the guys that can do that the best are usually the guys that are going to be, most primed for sustainable success. And that's why I think Emerson's going to do that. The question I keep getting is like, and this is what I'll wrap up with you. I'll put the ball in your court. I keep getting the question of how quickly can he supplant JP Crawford? And it's tough because JP Crawford gave you what, a 113 or 112 WRC plus this season. That doesn't grow on trees, especially with a vet presence and everything he brings to the table. You can't just assume that Colt Emerson in his rookie season is going to provide that. 2+ WAR and a 113 number. Even if he's a top prospect, there's always going to be an adjustment period. And this is a team that's trying to get to the World Series. I think the goal is clearly World Series again next year. Is it moving one of those guys over to third? Or is it just kind of waiting until you have more clarity there? Because now we already have a small sample, but Emerson finished the year with great numbers in AAA. If he has a really good spring training and then performs in AAA again, the pressure is going to be mounting to get that guy up there.
If I close my eyes while also looking into my crystal ball, which feels really hard because you need to have your eyes open to look
Mm-hmm.
into a crystal ball.
Yes, that's difficult.
So I'm going
One
to
closed,
scrap the
one open.
close. Yeah, I'm going to scrap the close eyes part, and I'm just going to look into my crystal ball, which is actually off to my right now for the YouTube crowd. When I look into the crystal ball, I see a 1 year deal for a third baseman, and I see Colt Emerson starting the year in AAA, and he's splitting his time between shortstop and third base. And depending on the direction of the Seattle Mariners by the deadline, they make a decision. So they either trade the third baseman they brought in on a 1 year deal and they bring Colt Emerson up to play third, or they trade JP Crawford and they bring Colt Emerson up to play short.
Yeah, sometimes
That's
guys just don't time up well with the PPI, and I think if you're a team that, again, it's World Series aspirations, you just got to eat
you
that
have to
sometimes.
say screw the PPI.
Yeah,
You have to like prioritize winning right away, giving yourself the best
but
shot
they
while
draft so
also
well. Look what they keep doing with these comp eight picks. It's
I
so
know,
tough.
but like okay, so there's going to be another
Yeah, that's the
opportunity
thing.
to come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had that. I saw the light bulb just go off in your head the second I had said it, and I was like, I had the same thought. Someone else can come up and maybe
Yeah, like
Laz will get you
next
the
year
PPI
they
pick.
could have the PPI thing
Yeah,
going on. Yeah,
maybe Kade Anderson gets you the PPI pick. Maybe Sloan gets you the PPI pick. Like,
sure. Maybe
and
Las Montes in 27. Like there are opportunities there.
yeah. So I think from that perspective, that probably makes the most sense. And
Yeah.
there's no reason to rush him, and I still think a good amount of time in AAA would be good because the chase is still a little elevated against secondaries. But that'll do it for this episode. We're going to continue to go over the updated team top prospect lists as the off season continues for every team except for the two in the World Series. Very excited about the World Series, obviously, and Trey Savage getting the ball. It's crazy. Early in the year, we're talking about when is this guy going to get out of low A, and here he is getting the ball game one in the World Series. So that's pretty darn cool. But we will continue to fly through these AL West updates, and then there'll be NL East as well, and keep you primed up on the Arizona Fall League. Some other fun content ahead as well, and keep an eye out. That top 100 list will be out not too long from now. As always, thank you for listening. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to talking prospects with you next week. Enjoy the World Series.